But I have been working in my sketchbook. And the last video I showed you these faces. And I think I stopped here. And I showed you some of the front pages that I haven't done anything to yet, but there was a suggestion just to do faces over them. They're really just scribbles. So I think I will do that with some big juicy markers. I haven't chosen what I wanted to do. And then in the back of this book, I showed you where I did some Zentangle samples. And I did one more page of those last night, and that would be this page. I'm not going to talk about it too much. I just want to show it to you. This one, and then I flipped over and did this one. I'm just basically playing with different patterns on the page. My marker's starting to run out there. But I wanted to show you what I've been doing the last week, I think since February 7th. February 7th. This would be my next page after the last page I showed you here. And I'm working out of a magazine, a woman's magazine again on this one, and I accidentally put a mark across her face there later. So that black mark there doesn't really belong, but it happens. So, and I was just, again, working with the angle of the face. She's facing downward, working with the open mouth. I'm pretty happy with her open mouth there. I have found that I used the distress marker on these, and it's a little bit different doing face with the distress marker than it is doing with a pit pen or a zig pen. I think I use zig pens for here. Here I'm working with the open mouth, the ear, and the eye. Sometimes I do the face really fast in a fast sketch, and then I come back in and work on it on more detail on the opposite page. Just really practicing more than anything. Here's another one where I used my blue zig pen, and then in the background I used my distress marker to kind of bring some shadowing into the face. This is a fellow, I think I got the image off the internet, but it looks nothing like him, so to speak, other than the shape of the face. So I'm not really worried about anybody coming and saying, that's me, you can't use it. Because I really don't think that my faces, they give more, and I keep saying these are not meant to be photographs. These are not, there is such a thing as realistic drawing, or realistic, what do they call it, photorealistic drawing. And I mean, those are people who do that. I just admire them so much, but I don't spend the time to do that. For me, it's more about working with the hands, the shape of the hands, the positioning of the hands, the hand in regard to the ear, as he's holding his hand up against his face, where this small finger here, how it falls in relation to his lips, the nose in relation to the lips. And this is pretty much a front-on view, so I don't have the angling here aspect to work on. But even working with a front-on view, what I find that challenges me with working with a front-on view of a face is no matter how hard I try to get the shading and the shading around in here and to make this three-dimensional, it still looks flat to me. It's still a two-dimensional surface, and sometimes I think I work on it too much to where I have such a stark contrast that it starts to flatten it out again. So I brought out my distress markers and was bringing in some shadow and some shading, just playing with it, seeing what I could accomplish. I've also been playing with my alcohol ink, so if you see ink underneath of my fingernails, I'm sorry. I was tempted to get out my metallic copper paint and give myself my fingernails as a sort of a parody on all the manicures that I see with the artists. I don't bother with that because, for the same reason that I don't wear a lot of jewelry, is because once I got any type of a professional manicure, I would be having gloss medium alcohol peeling, and I mean, it would just be horrible within within hours of doing it. So I really don't bother with it. But I was working with my alcohol inks today, and before I thought to put on my gloves, I pretty much inked up my hands. I got most of it off, but it's still there. So I apologize for that, but that's the way it is. Anyway, I was working on the hand here again. This is actually the same hand here, and I got it in a little bit more detail, maybe not quite as much, but I just wanted to work with it a little bit more. So sometimes I'll pull an element off of the face that I'm working off here and just work with it just a little bit more, study it a little bit more. They're studies. And I did the same thing here. This man, I did a very fast sketch. Here again, that was with a brown slick writer. And I really don't use those too much. It's got sort of a medium tip point where you can get medium bold lines, and you can also get some fine lines in there. And then I used my distress marker to kind of pull out some of the shading. But then I went into it in more detail over here. Now, you can kind of tell that this man is the same as this man in the fact that they're both looking that way, and maybe the nose is shaped a little bit differently. But I did a lot more work on the mouth area, a lot more work on the eyes and the forehead. And here again, they are studies. Here I worked more on the ear, the different aspects of the ear. And you'll see that I did a lot of men this week. Not all of them. Here's another study that I did. Here's the first one that I did. I was very happy with this one. I was happy with how it turned out. And I thought, well, I'm just going to practice on her mouth a little bit more. And I ended up doing her entire face over here, which I don't always do. But I was really happy with how this one turned out. I really think I caught the personality of this person in these two sketches. So, even though these are just studies, sometimes I'm pretty happy with them as completed art. Here's another one. Working on a man's face. I find that with men, sketching men, they are very fun to sketch because they have such angular faces. There are so many different planes to a man's face. A woman's face, let me go back to this one I did over here. This one. Their faces are very smooth. If you got a lot of angles in their face, she would probably look aged or old. And so women's faces are pretty easy to draw in the sense that you don't have, or you do have, I mean, there are angles in their faces that do not show up here, but you can do a successful woman's face without detailing a lot of the angular shapes on her face and come out with a pretty successful drawing. Whereas a man's face, if you didn't get all that angularity in there, you would end up with, here again, what I perceive as a pretty flat image. Now that's give and take depending on whether, how his head is positioned. And here again, this is another front on face. I think I was pretty successful with him with my shading. A lot of cross hatching in there. Not detailed cross hatching, but taking my pen and going this way and then coming that way. Scribbles cross hatching. And this man and this man and this man and this man are not the same. This side of the page is not studies of this side of the page. I went to entirely, in fact, I did this one on the 16th and this one on the 11th. But I wanted to use up spaces of my page, and I wanted to study and do another study of eyes and the nose area in here. And here again, working on the nose area in there. Next page, if I can get to it. Here again, I like the women, and when I can do those, I usually do them on a full composition of my page, whereas you can see over here, the man's head, his entire head kind of fits right in here. With the women, I tend to put their face across the entire, well, not her so much, but her. See, I've got her entire face almost covering the whole area of the page. And I tend to do that a lot with the women that I sketch. And here again, these are not studies of here. These are studies of, I call this the big nose. This is a honker nose. And even the photograph that I worked on, the person had a very large nose. But I wanted to work on it, and I wouldn't call this entirely successful. I mean, it looks like a nose, but that's, you know, I was just sketching it. This one I find a little bit more sketchable. I'm happy with the way I do the eyes. I think I got that down. Working on the open mouth again here, I find that the more I work on it, the happier I am with them. Here's another sketch of a young lady, and see how I do not put in all the shading and the angularity of the woman's face. I dwell on the eyes. Here I was working on the open mouth. I think my open mouths are getting much better, even as I've progressed from the beginning of the book to this point. It just takes practice and working with them. And this is a younger girl over here. The open mouth, the eyes, the ears tend to be smaller, and her bangs were falling down that way. So, yes, I'm happy with these as completed drawings, too. And then I decided, you don't see a lot of older men and a lot of older women in a lot of the face sketches. Now, I'm not doing the 28-day February Faces 29-day challenge. That isn't what this is about. I'm sure that if you looked at my other videos, you will see other instances where I have done a lot of faces in the past. I enjoy doing faces. In fact, one of my faces videos that I first put up is one of my more popular videos on my channel. So I figure, well, maybe that's what I should be working on and showing people. So here's another one of an older lady. Now here with an older lady, because her skin, as women age, their skin becomes more and their face becomes more angular, and their skin becomes, what do you want to call it, more not quite as tight and taut and smooth and pretty. Well, it's pretty, but it's pretty in a different way. I just adore drawing older women. I think even her eyes, she just has that certain kindness in her eyes. And I just simply always have enjoyed drawing the older people. And this is a study, a more detailed study over here of this same lady. And although I did not do the other side of the face here, I'm happy with this as a completed drawing. I studied what I wanted to study. I spent the time on it that I needed to spend at the time. And I'm done with it, and I moved on. Cannot say the same for this fellow. I would not call it a failure. I'm not unhappy with him, but just something about him. I think here again it's a frontal view, and maybe this is what I need to work on, is frontal views of middle-aged men. Because to me, that is, as I look at it, it's very, this area here starts to become very flat to me. The nose does not, to me, have the depth that I want it to have. Even the eyes, I don't have the shading in the eyes as much. I don't know if I just wasn't feeling good that day when I did that, but it's not an unsuccessful drawing. It just did not accomplish on this page what I wanted to accomplish. And I did not, usually when I'm having trouble with the drawing, I'll go to the other page and work on more detailed areas. I didn't. I went to drawing some hands. And this is a hand holding a hand here. Hands and fingers are very interesting to draw and to study. How a hand grasps another hand and the relation of the fingers to the thumb and to each other and to another hand that's holding it up here. You could spend an entire book just drawing different positions of hands and ears and eyes. So these are just studies. I would not call them, how do you want to say, masterpieces. I'm not shooting for masterpieces. I'm shooting for improving my artistic skills. Here's another one that I did. This was the first one that I did. Here again, it's the frontal view. Was not entirely happy with him. Here again, see, I have so much white area in here that it becomes very flat to me. No matter how much I tried to shade in here, I just haven't quite accomplished what I want to accomplish on these frontal views yet. This is the same man as this over here. On this one, on both of them, he's kind of looking at a, what do you want to say? If this were 90 degrees here, he's probably looking, his eyes are probably looking at maybe an 80-degree angle. He's not looking at you front on. And I think I accomplished that in this study with his eyes. I'm not entirely happy with the nose yet. I don't think I have that. It starts to flatten out for me looking at it visually in here. But I am much happier with the detail study than I am the first sketch I did. And the more you sketch it, even just a picture, the more you sketch on it, if you sketch it once, you sketch it twice, you sketch it 3 times, the more things you start to notice, the better it will become. I usually sketch it once, get an idea of where the face is in, you know, the nose is in relation to the eyes and the lips and all of that, and then I'll go do a more detailed study. I'm happier with it, so I quit. But if I would do this 5 more times, you can believe that he would start looking more like him. So, but for me, these are just studies. These, I want to be able to accomplish a very quick sketch that is this good, or getting better. This good, we'll say as good as his eyes. I still have areas I want to work on here. Here's another one. Now in this instance, I actually feel like the sketch that I did at first, which would be this page, is better than my detailed sketch. I just think I have, and here I started to fill the entire page with his face, like I was showing you on these ladies, where their face, on my ladies, their face covers the entire page. Well, his face covers almost compositionally the entire page. I'm pretty happy with this one. But I wasn't, when I did it, I wanted to study it more. Well, my study, I don't know if I was just getting tired of sketching or what, but I can see one area right in here in his nose that I'm very unhappy with. That's all out of kilter. His eye up here is not what I wanted it to be. But when you're not happy with something, just move to the next page. That was one I did today. This is, I kind of skipped some pages here accidentally. I usually work from page to page, but I skipped a couple pages. This one is one I did today. I'm pretty happy with that. Here again, see, I'm starting to cover, excuse me, compositionally, the entire face across the page rather than just a spot on the page. And I think that just gives me more room, more detail to work with. I was happy enough with him that I did not do a detailed sketch over there. But I'll bet you if I would have, that most of the time I seem to come out with a better drawing. Not all the time. And then another one I did today was this fella here. And he has a very interesting features. I like his eyebrows, his big bushy eyebrows. But here again, I seem to flatten out that nose somehow. And that could be a function of drawing from a photograph. Drawing from a photograph, sometimes you do not get all the shading of a three-dimensional nose. So sometimes when you're drawing these faces, you have to understand how a face is shaped. That, you know, that on a man's nose, he's going to have an area of his face that's going to be slant down that way and then come this way, and I think sometimes I find it most of the time in the men that I draw that I seem to flatten out their nose. And I'm just wondering now, as I talk to you about it, if that isn't a function of me drawing from a photograph. I wonder if I would actually sketch a person from real life who was posing in a studio, and if I could get up close enough to their face to actually draw their face front on, is if I would have that same problem. So that is my second flip through. I've stopped at this point. I've got to go back in and fill in this page. And I think I skipped another page back in here. Over here, I skipped a page. Probably go in and do something there. These I just left. They are what they were then, but I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with what my studies that I have done in the last, since I showed you the first flip through of this. I think that the more I work with these, the more fun I have, the more experience you get. I really like this set. The more you bring out details and do different studies, which doesn't mean that a year from now, if I'm doing portraits, they're all going to be successes, because there are a lot of factors going in. How do you feel that day? Is your ink pen, does it have enough ink in it? Is it cooperating with you? I like this too. For an incomplete face, I think there's just something about that. I like her. I like the positioning of her lips. And then even this little bit of yellow here just adds some sunshine to the page. Here's one where I say, leave it, go to the next page. Some hands. I want to start doing more hands and feet. But right now I'm kind of concentrating on, I think I need to work on the front-on view of a man's face, and I'm working on open mouths. Maybe the front-on view of a man's forehead. I'm not sure that, just as I talk to you, I'm just wondering if that just isn't a function of working off of photographs. Pretty happy with this face, not as happy with that one. So, there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this second flip through. And if you have, please subscribe to my channel, because I plan to be doing some more art videos and faces and sketches. I've got some experiments that I'm doing with alcohol inks with background pages for an art journal. Those are coming up, and I have some other art journaling that I want to show you. So I will see you on the next page.